Whoa. What is going on with the camera mount there? Were you able to see it?
No, it still says upcoming on my screen.
You'll have to probably refresh it. Here it goes. All right. Technical problems as always. See, Elijah's on. Hello.
There you go. Yeah, I got it in here.
Okay. Some kind of problem I was having with it. It kept coming up and telling me that it wouldn't. The app kept crashing, basically. That it didn't work. So anyway, so welcome back to Spurger Homestead. I'm Nikki. This is Kanan, the tech guy.
The not so tech guy.
I'll turn that a little bit. There we go. So I guess we'll start as always talking about what's new around here and what's not, and then we'll get into it, I guess. So, not a whole lot going on around here right now. We're in that kind of lull spot where it's not really spring yet, not really winter. Just kind of that getting ready to do a whole lot of things kind of thing. Eggs are going to start hatching in the incubator tomorrow. So those are quail, all the quail eggs that I bought. So we're getting really excited about that. Chickens start this weekend hatching. I got baby bunnies in the nest boxes. What else has been going on? We moved the pregnant Nubian goats out into some more yard space today. So that has been good. Our hip camp is open. We had our opening weekend Friday night. So we had our first campers already. So that's been just fine. What else? Kanan's job's almost over.
Yep, confirmed that today. That'll be the 23rd unless we finish up the project early.
Yeah.
But that's at least 3 weeks away.
Had to put a rabbit down today, which was a major bummer. One of my favorite Japanese does. Not real sure what she did. It looks like she was maybe running around and caught her feet in the wire and managed to break a whole lot of stuff. Like there was a bone coming out of the one foot and the other leg had broken and was already fusing. Rabbits heal crazy fast, so it was already fusing. So nothing I can really do to help her. And I tried for a couple days, and then leg injuries in rabbits are kind of a big deal, especially hind legs. Front legs are more healable. So I took her out and put her down today, which is kind of a bummer. So the biggest part of it that's such a bummer is her mother was like my favorite of the Japanese does that I had gotten from a friend of mine. And she's the one that had a heart attack. We've talked about her in other videos. She had a heart attack while we were in feeding. That was Serenity.
Yes.
And basically died right in front of us. And so this doe, I got her in utero. Mom came to the house, and like a week and a half later had babies. And this was my keeper out of that original group. She was like 2.5, 3 years old, so still a pretty young doe. We granted her out as a grand champion. Just a really nice girl, and
yeah,
it's kind of a bummer. I never kept anything out of her. All I ever got was nice bucks, and bucks are really hard to keep. Like you really have to have a super buck. So never kept anything out of her, and she was the only thing I ever kept out of Mom. So I lost that entire line today, which is kind of a bummer deal, but they come and they go, unfortunately. I mean, it's horrible, but we see that a lot over the span of a lifetime. So,
yep.
What kind of things are you answering over there?
Nothing. Elijah said he lost his chocolate Tom today. It ruined his preseasons. I was just saying, I asked where he was because, we have that one outside now. I mean, he's got a bad attitude, but, he would take the job,
Yeah.
But Elijah's in Pennsylvania, so can't really get him there.
Skosh far.
Yeah, unfortunately.
We've had that happen to us before, right before breeding season, where we that happened to my butter No, Buckeye. Sorry, Buckeye chickens.
Mm-hmm.
A couple years ago, like they had just started to lay, and usually the first week of lay we discard because they don't tend to have very good fertility. And sure enough, that stupid rooster died. Remember
Yeah.
that? We walked out and I was like, "Oh my god!" This is why for our breeding flocks we always keep 2 roosters now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
We always, well, it seems like if we order them with at least 2 roosters, or we order enough that you would assume maybe a 60-40 split will happen, and so you get that. But it's inevitably either we get 2 roosters or 2 or 3 roosters, or it seems like you get 1 and it dies. It's like you can never have that perfect balance of like 3 or 4 hens and 1 rooster. Somehow it's either you have too many or not enough.
yeah. And this year this last fall when I ordered the new Wyandottes, because we'd gotten basically new chickens for most of it.
Yeah.
I ordered 2 roos and 8 hens of everything to make sure that we had plenty. And sure enough, it went the other way, right? So what should have been pullets, I got a whole bunch of roosters. So like on my silver laced, I had 4? I had 4 roosters. I had 3 golden laced. And I had 3 red lace blues. So this is kind of how it works sometimes. But that's kind of the big stuff. Lots going on with the rabbits, of course. We're taking most of our cages out and repairing floors. Breeding a whole bunch. We've been selling a whole bunch to the coal buyer and other folks. I'm about rabbited out for a little bit. Of course, if you saw the last video where we talked about RHD, shows are over for us. Basically, there's really nothing else happening. They're still pushing on with having West Coast Classic this coming weekend.
Yeah, it should be this weekend.
Yeah, it should be this weekend.
Days away.
I am not going. It's just too far. It's just too disruptive, and nobody's showing my breeds. Like, one other person is going for Harlequins, so it's just not worth the drive. If showing by yourself doesn't really accomplish anything.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I guess if you want the points, you could get points for it, but not really. I mean, it's not enough to really justify it. You almost have to pay a lucrative amount of money in there just to put enough rabbits in to get the points.
And this is going to be one of those kind of years in sweepstakes points that I'm not going to be able to show enough to do any good in sweeps anyway.
Yeah.
So this is what it is. So anyway, moving on to that, I guess. Tomorrow I go pick up all of our fencing. So we have 10 rolls, 4 of goat fence, 6 of field fence, and I'm going to stop by and pick up 15 rolls of barbed wire. So lots and lots and lots of videos about installing fencing is coming.
Yeah.
Won't be terribly exciting. I mean, I don't know. I haven't done barbed wire in a while. It could be amazingly exciting. I could get stuck in it. Dogs could get stuck in it.
It's hard to say.
God, I hope not.
Today we did a project this afternoon. I guess we started before lunch.
Yeah.
Started taking down the fence, but we took down 8 panels down here by the house and moved them up to the Nubian goats. So if you are on Facebook, and you might have seen the picture I put up a couple hours ago, but it was we moved 11 total panels. Is that right?
Yeah.
So we moved 11 panels and kind of shifted, locked the goats out of where they had been, and then moved them over into some grass. So they'll have some fresh grass and that for
not for long.
A week or 2 weeks. They've been out there eating nonstop for about 6 hours now.
Yeah.
So they'll gorge themselves on grass. Won't eat a lot of hay tonight, which is nice because we can save a little bit of hay. But they'll eat that, and then we're gonna start working on our permanent fence lines and finally stop playing the musical panel game that we do every year.
Yeah, we're about tired of moving panels around. I see some questions coming in, or comments.
So Elijah asked, do you run a strand of barbed wire on top of the livestock fencing, or do you fence out of entirely barbed wire?
I don't put barbed wire on top of fencing. I've never thought it was very helpful. We tried it one year, I think, when I was a kid. I want to say that we had a strand of barbed wire over the top to try and keep the cows from tearing up the fence, and it doesn't stop cows. Um, no, the barbed wire is mostly for our back 40. So the back 40 acres is only fenced on the one side between us and the neighbor, and that's because he put the fencing up last year. We had the posts in, but he put in the wire. Um, yeah, it's mostly to keep range cows out. So we have in some years we've had as many as what 35
Yeah.
range cows that show up usually in July, August. This last year they came in June. That have been coming back into our meadow for probably 20, 30 years. So we're finally fencing them out. We are a fence out state. So if we want animals off of our property, we have to fence them out. So we are fencing that out to keep the cows out of basically what we've turned into our camping area. For our actual livestock, the main 20 right now is barbed wire and perimeter for the same reason. My parents, when they bought the place, were just trying to keep the cows out.
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually going to put, it's too much work to take the barbed wire down. We're just going to put the field fencing right over the top of it to keep the goats in. Because, of course, barbed wire won't stop goats. So generally, I don't like barbed wire a whole lot. So it's just kind of the way it works.
So Patriots Rabbitry asked if you ever plan to do videos on getting started and showing rabbits.
Yes, I am, because a lot of people have asked. Right now, it's impossible to make a video about showing rabbits when there are no shows. But I'd like to. I started to do one a while back, and then I never got to finish it, and then we never got to show again. So, yes, I will do some videos on showing. No, it's not going to be anytime soon because we just can't. I have no more shows to go to at this point. So
it'd almost be easier if you had somebody that could go along with you to film you at a show, more like a vlog or anything else. It'd be nice if you had somebody that went with you, that you could start it out like, guys, I'm getting ready for a show, and here's the stuff I normally take, and kind of get down there, and you could get like a third person view, because it would be very hard to. Well, I'm just thinking from a video perspective, it would be easy to have somebody stand back and to kind of video everything. I can only imagine if it was a first person shot video, a lot of the audio would not be usable because it would be so loud. And
that is the biggest problem when you get actually to a showroom. Yeah, and I probably should have tried to finish up the original one or make a new one when I was going to Cal State last week or whatever it was. But quite frankly, I was a bit of a mess. I hadn't shown in a year. He can attest to this. I was way off my game. Things that usually take me 2 hours to get together, it took me like 4. I hadn't done it in so long. I just wasn't like prepared at all, I guess. Just kind of, what?
Just watching the playback, wondering what was behind us. I think that was one of the cats. I'm like, man, is that a goat?
Yeah, but it's I was just so off my game. I will say that. I hope we're gonna get to show again this fall. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen anymore, to be honest. I don't know. We will show again someday. Will it be anytime soon? I have no idea. So
that was it.
I see where Anita had asked. Yeah, West Coast Classic is in Merced again. That's and then I thought they were doing another one in another month or something.
I thought there was another one in June that you had mentioned. It was back in Merced.
Well, I saw a bunch of stuff got canceled again too. Yeah. Like they're down. Seriously, saw the listing for District 1, which is more or less the Northwest. The listing I saw the other day had 3 shows left on it. That had West Coast Classic, a show in Fairbanks, and the show in Kalispell, Montana. So, kind of a interesting deal.
Yeah. So Elijah's asking, are your geese laying? And boy, howdy, are they laying.
Gosh, they started, what, a month ago?
Yeah, they started a month or 6 weeks ago. We actually ate probably 3 weeks of lays because they didn't have the incubator going. So we actually have been eating those,
Yeah,
the early ones.
they were real spotty in the beginning, so we ate like 8 or 9 of them. Actually, I made frozen freezer oatmeal with them, but
Right.
yeah,
Gave a couple to your mom.
yeah, yeah, my mom took a couple of them. Yeah, I've got 3 rows in the one tray, and then I've got 2 or 3 more rows in the next tray. So I've got um some like 25 or 30 goose eggs in the incubator right now.
Yeah.
And I've got more to go. I
Yeah.
just don't have space yet. They take up so much incubator space. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, they are. But they lay, each hen, we have 3 total. They lay about an egg every other day. So some days you can go in there and get 1 egg. Some days you get 3 eggs.
Yeah.
And, it seems like they're not consistently every other day. They're, it's
Geese are funny,
yeah.
but this is their, so these geese literally are turning 7 about now.
Yeah.
I got them the first year that we were here, so this is their 6th year of laying, and this is by far the most consistent so far. Last year was a really good consistent year for them, so
Yeah.
they are doing better all the time, I think, anyway.
Yeah, they've been good.
Much to Kanan's aggravation.
Patriot Strategy asks, is there a huge difference in taste between geese and chicken eggs?
Goose eggs are closer to duck eggs. So most of your waterfowl, except Muscovy ducks. Muscovy ducks are like their own thing. Goose eggs tend to be more alkaline, like duck eggs are. So it's a different taste. Like the whites are a little bit different. The yolk is a little bit different. Um, when we've eaten them in the past, he doesn't notice a difference. I can't eat them, like I couldn't eat duck eggs straight. I don't like, for some reason, and this happens in some people, they taste kind of musty and weird to me. I know he's like, whatever. I cook them into stuff, but I can't just eat a duck or goose egg. It's just, they taste funny to me.
Yeah.
Murky, muddy, musty. I'm not sure what the word for it is, but they taste off to me.
I don't know. She always cooks them with mixed with cheese and sometimes with ham and everything else. It all just tastes the same to me.
Yeah, he's not as picky.
Yeah.
But okay, so we were going to talk a little bit about scheduling, calendars, and record keeping because a lot of people have been asking. So I guess one of the things we get a lot, and I won't say that we are by any means great taskmasters of ourselves, but I get a lot of people asking, how do you keep all this stuff straight, right? Because we've got rabbit spread, and we've got eggs in the incubator, and we've got goats that are due to have kids, and how do you keep all the animal stuff straight? So I do a couple of things. I used to write on a calendar. That never worked because inevitably we forgot to keep up with it. I use a notepad for a lot of stuff, like a 3-ring notebook. What I do there is, like, when I make my breeding decisions or breed, I go ahead and write it down, what date I did it, and then eventually it goes into the computer. So I use a program called KinTrax. It's like $20 for the full unlocked version, and I've got it set up where there's a database for pretty much everything. So goats have their own, dogs have their own, rabbits have their own. I don't track any of the poultry through it anymore. It just doesn't really work very well. But we go through and I keep all my breeding records in there. And then once I've got a date, so like I'll go in and say, okay, well, I bred on the 21st and who I bred to. And then I go back into my phone calendar and I end up using a task reminder to remind myself that 3 days or 4 days before due date, these are all the rabbits that need nest boxes. And then there's another entry for the due date. And that way, because, you're attached to the phone, I don't like any of the computer programs for rabbit management. at all that work on your phone. To me, they're all junk. They don't have enough detail. But I put the ones that I use, the Kintrax, we can put, so there's a health tab, we can put all of our worming. I'll put in there if there's an injury, if we've had ear mites, and then we can actually keep weights in there and you can track weights. And then, when you go through and you add in a litter, because how Kintrax works is you'll put in a breeding, it'll tell you when the nest box goes in, it'll tell you the estimated date. You go in to update later and say, yes, we had babies on this day. It'll ask you for how many, and then you can click a button to add them into the herd later on if you want. A lot of times if they're culls, I don't bother, but you can track how many babies that they had. There's a place in the bottom for notes. So if mom threw 5 on the wire, I can put that in, and then I can go back in and look at all of her records. I know I've seen some comments pop up, so.
Yeah. I don't want to butcher the last name. It's Christopher's first name. Would grow with a very simple maze system help the rabbits grow faster and be less prone to fighting.
Tell me that again.
A grow out cage with a maze system, would it help the rabbits grow faster and be less prone to fighting?
No. Rabbits are more prone to stress in environments they don't understand. So if you're raising rabbits in a cage, raise them in a cage. If you move them to something that they don't understand, you will cause stress. So what would happen if a rabbit got further into a maze, and because it's a maze, stopped, couldn't figure out where they were going, you cause a stress response. They can go off of feeding, they can have heart attacks, they can have all kinds of problems. You shouldn't run into fighting in a grow out cage. If you're running into fighting, you're either holding them too long or you're not separating them by sex. And really, in most of your meat breeds, by 10 weeks, they should be split by sex. Bucks in one and does in another. And then usually you're eating these guys by 12 weeks at the very latest. Mm-hmm. If you're having fighting problems, you're probably holding them too long. I know some people like to grow them out a little bit bigger for, bigger meat rabbits to make like ground meat. We do that on occasion where I'll grow them out much larger just because it's less work. But yeah, a maze system, no, I don't think it would work. I think you'd run into more stress problems.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, that's it.
So, anyway, so we do everything through Kintrax on the rabbits and the goats. And the same thing with goats is, we pasture breed, so I know roughly when everybody should be starting to deliver. And about a week and a half ahead of time, I give myself a little ding on a little calendar note that reminds me and says, hey, babies are coming, so that I can, kind of get ready. I do the same thing using the calendar for chicken eggs or any of the eggs, really. I'll just put in a note and say, eggs due. And then I just go through. What I do is I write the date that they're going to hatch when I put them in. And then I can just, eggs are due to hatch on the 24th. So I can see that on my calendar on the 21st. I pull everything down and put it in there in the hatching area. So that's kind of the big stuff for the calendar. Now, I think it was Cindy that was asking me about record keeping and how often I'm weighing rabbits and that kind of stuff. So I've been doing it long enough and we have enough litters that I can eyeball it and I know if a litter's on track. I can't tell you exactly what they weigh at 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks. But if I were just getting started, and I did this years ago when we first started out, I used to weigh this often. Weigh at 2, 4, 6, and 8 weeks as you're starting to do it, and you'll kind of get a better feel for are they on track or not. The reason that kind of stuff's important is if you've got a doe or a buck that is consistently producing animals that don't grow as fast, you probably want to cull them out or sell them off or do whatever. But it's important information to have. Like I said, I've done this long enough that I know which bucks throw slower producing stuff, I can tell you by looking at a litter if it's on pace or if it's just behind, and that's just because I've done it and had so many litters over what 7, 8, 9 years, something like that. So
I don't want to ask you this question because I know what your answer is going to be. Just getting to I'm assuming meat rabbits, and what type of mineral lick is best? None.
No mineral licks. No mineral licks. I don't even know why they keep making them. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. They are filthy, and they will rot out cages like nothing you've ever seen. They just corrode the metal around them. What happens is you end up with nutritional imbalances, right? Because nervous rabbits that like to chew and lick on stuff will use them even if they don't need them. Rabbits that don't like to chew and lick on stuff will never use them anyway. So you're not getting anything. Pick a nutritionally balanced feed, especially when you're first getting started in rabbits. I'm all for moving to more natural feeding, and I think that's great if you've done the research and know what you're doing, but don't start there. You need to start with a balanced feed first and get a real understanding of how the rabbits grow and what they need before you move them over into something else. But never, never do I recommend mineral spools. He knows it drives me crazy. I've seen broken teeth from mineral spools because they've always got a hanger, and inevitably something gets a hold of it and smashes teeth up.
Yeah.
They drive me crazy. Not to unload, but mineral spools are not a good idea for rabbits. They just are far more hassle than they're worth. Was that it?
That was it.
He knew.
I knew it was going to be a loaded question as soon as I saw it.
I think I've talked about him before.
I know.
Once or twice.
I know. We should add that to we should just do a short 3-minute video on should I add a mineral block to my rabbits.
Eventually.
Eventually. Yeah.
So yeah. I see something about feed. It might not have come up over there yet.
It's delayed on mine. Top choices for commercial feed.
Depends on where you are and what your availability is. So you really this is where I tell everybody, and I think we talked about it in how to be a good breeder. In fact, I'm pretty sure we did in one of these recent videos.
So, but I couldn't tell you which week it is or if it's been released yet.
No, it would have been released by now. So the thing you're looking for is 16 to 17% protein, 3 to 3.5% fat, and anywhere from 18 to 22% fiber is kind of the big thing. Now, on top of that, you're looking for the first ingredients should be always something like alfalfa or Timothy hay, something like that. If the first ingredient is wheat middlings, run. You're also looking for a really consistent, really fresh feed. And this is where one of those things where you might have to get out and look at bags and check the mill dates on some of these bags. Ask other breeders. And then kind of feel around and ask about recalls. Because it seems like, remember that even a feed like Mana Pro or Purina is made by a lot of different mills. So, like, we have Purina here in Oregon, and I'm not a big Purina fan, don't get me wrong, that I've never heard a recall come out of the Purina mill here in Oregon. But the one in Spokane, Washington, like, all the time. There's a Mana Pro manufacturer in California, always having recalls. So, you really want to find out kind of what the lay of the land in your area is, because, you know, I could tell you a feed and you could go get it and it could be coming out of a mill that just makes garbage. So it really just depends on where you're at. Buy a few bags. I mean, there's no harm in buying, and I did this when we lived in Mississippi. I bought like 4 different brands and kind of opened them up and checked them out and kind of saw what I liked and what I didn't like. You want a good green feed that's fresh, but check the label because some of them use dyes to make things more green. I want to say Purina got busted for that years ago. So check the label, make sure there's no dyes in it. And then just see what seems really fresh. And if you buy four bags of like every different feed that you can get, mix them all together and feed them. I mean, don't let them go to waste. But pick one that you want to use, or two, and blend. Um, but yeah, as far as brand, I never like to recommend an actual brand.
Question on recommending any of greens, if so, and how often?
We will usually feed kale 2 to 3 times a week. I do dandelion greens, same thing, 2 to 3. Spinach, no more than once a week, because
Right.
it's high in oxalic acid. I'm probably going to say that wrong, but oxalic acid. Chard, we do a couple times a week. Regular grass, we'll do a couple times a week. And we're talking pretty small quantities. Like for an adult rabbit, a cup or less. Babies, so in juniors, it's not really a good idea unless mom has been being fed greens since they were in utero or very young. Because otherwise they have no natural GI
balance for it.
There you go. Yeah. Greens will upset a junior's GI tract faster than anything. It's got to do a whole lot with minerals and water content and all that. So I try not to do a whole lot of greens for my juniors. Like when we are, like I said, we basically during the summer I give greens almost every day.
Right.
Just because I have a whole plethora of stuff and we just vary what it is. The mothers that have babies, they'll still get that 1 cup. And yeah, the babies will munch on some of it, but moms like greens enough that they're also like totally willing to push their kids out of the way for it. So I don't worry too much about it. But yeah, don't the impulse that most people have is, oh well, I've got 8 babies in there, so I'm going to double or triple the amount of greens I'm giving. Don't necessarily do that.
Yeah.
And then once I move them out to the weaning cage, they get like a leaf here or a leaf there, like a couple times a week, and we watch them very, very closely for any kind of loose stools, diarrhea, that kind of stuff. And if I see any of it, they don't get any more. It's just not. It's too much hassle to try and keep their gut moving.
Yeah, we did a video last year, maybe, or the year before, like 2 years ago, that was planting your garden specifically for rabbits.
Yeah, I think that might have been last spring.
And it was in one of our greenhouses, our hoop greenhouse that we built. But it was a video specifically on if you're going to grow things in your garden for yourself, what can you do or what can you add as a complementary thing that you can feed to your rabbits. And I want to say it was like a natural garden for your rabbits. I can't remember what it's called, but it's out there on the playlist and the channel from a year ago or a year and a half ago, something like that.
We talked about some herbs and vegetables and a few weeds, because not very many people cultivate dandelions, obviously. Plantain can be fed, comfrey. You can feed it, but you have to be very, very cautious because it's really high in calcium. So there are a lot of different stuff you can feed. But yeah, we do have, I forgot about that. We do have a video talking about it.
Yeah.
So
the question on animals chewing on antlers. Do you think rabbits would chew antlers if they put them in their cages? Like deer antlers, I'm assuming, stuff like that.
I would hesitate to do antlers as chews because they are high in calcium. I mean, they're bone, basically. I know squirrels and whatnot chew on them, but I wouldn't do it. I steer away from anything that's high in calcium. Having dealt with vitamin D toxicity and calcium issues, I absolutely strive to not run into calcium trouble. So I don't feed alfalfa. I don't feed a lot of spinach. I don't feed comfrey, and I wouldn't use antlers as chews for all those same reasons. Just not comfortable with the extra calcium.
So Christine asks why you don't like your wheat middlings in the feed.
It's junk. Wheat middlings are basically the nice way of saying after we've harvested the wheat, it's all the other crap that we don't use. So it's stems and it's chaff and it's bulk filler. It has no nutritional value. And what happens is they use wheat middlings to make up the fiber end of things, except rabbits don't always digest wheat stalk as well as they do grass fibers. So I don't want to see a feed with a lot of wheat middlings in it. To me, it's crap bulk filler. It's like the fact that they stick corn in everything, right? Because it's cheap. That's kind of how wheat middlings are. There's not a lot of nutritional value to it, and what happens is they make up for the fact that it's got no nutrition by pumping in a lot of extra vitamins and nutrients on the supplemental end, where they wouldn't have to do quite so much of that if they would just feed using alfalfa or a grass hay in the beginning. So
with greens, if you have babies and the psychotropes, cecotropes from mom fall through, is that dangerous?
I don't know that I would call it dangerous. It's a lot of times does when they're nursing, because their feed intake is higher, they're passing more cecotropes than they need. More up is pretty normal, because a lot of times Kane's like, I have no idea what that is.
I don't know.
But it's not unusual when a doe is nursing to see a lot of extra cecotropes down in the pan, because we have stackers, so I see it a lot. So it's not a big. They're getting some stuff from mom already. So my bigger thing with greens is to keep an eye on whether or not there is any sign of diarrhea or loose stools. That's far easier than trying to play the game of, are they getting enough cecotropes? Are they not? Because there's no way to know. You get some does that way overproduce, some that underproduce, and there's no way to really know what the babies are getting and what they're not. It's just far easier to just keep an eye on them. Introduce greens really slowly, and then just kind of keep an eye on what the babies are doing on their own.
Follow up to that, through the wires so they can't get bacteria.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same thing.
All right. So Chris is saying he's converting his small front yard and backyard to rabbit hay and other veggies that can be dried. What do you like? So I think we talked about it really. Anything that we've already mentioned: spinach, kale, dandelions. What else have you dried out there? Since Nikki made a dryer like last year.
Yeah. When you're talking about grasses, I like timothy, alfalfa. Those are really, or not alfalfa. Timothy and orchard grass are my favorite for grasses for rabbits. I will do a little alfalfa, like I'm putting in an alfalfa patch this year, mostly for the goats, but a little bit is fine. I don't feed a lot of it, but a little bit is fine. We do some beet greens. Again, watch those for oxalic acid. I do like when I've got a 4x8 dryer, and I try to make sure that, because what happens is when I dry it all gets smashed up into a bin, and I feed it mixed. I make sure that there's never anything more than 10% oxalic acid heavy vegetables. So that's for me mostly beet greens and spinach. And then I'll put chard, like I said, kale. We grow a ton of kale. Collard greens are fine. Our rabbits go crazy for them. Stay away from cabbage. There's a lot of herbs that are okay. in particular, basils. They love basils. Oreganos tend to be okay. Raspberry and blackberry leaf is okay. You want to stay away from mints. We do a lot of mints, but I have to keep that in a separate bin because it will cause your does to dry up if they're nursing. You don't want that. It can also cause abortion depending on where in the pregnancy it's fed. So I try and stay away from mints. But that's kind of the big thing. And like I said, dandelions, comfrey, plantain, same thing. If you're going to feed comfrey, it should be less than 10% of the total. I was trying to think what else. Those are kind of the big things that I grow anyway.
Yeah, I mean we don't exactly have the best growing environment. We typically have to.
That's an understatement.
Well, I'm just saying there's certain things that grow well outside that we can water in that, and then there's things that we grow in the various greenhouses that we hand water every day, or we have a sprinkler on for 45 minutes a day or something like that. Something that's relatively easy, but most of it outside of like the dandelions and the grasses and that, it's stuff we eat ourselves that we mix into salads and that. So
yeah, it's mostly extras.
Yeah.
I do radish greens every now and then, but they're high in, I can't remember if it's oxalic acid. There's something in radish greens you got to be careful of. Like I've given some small amounts to adult rabbits and had problems. So you got to be really cautious with radish greens.
Yeah.
No turnip. I've had people tell me turnip and mustard greens are okay, but the one time I did turnip greens, I had sick rabbits. So I don't know if there's something in them to avoid or not. I've never really looked into it. We don't eat a lot of turnips, so.
Yeah. That was it. Other than Elijah said coneflower is good dried in red clover in small amounts.
Yeah, I stay away from clover in general. Clover causes foaming in the gut. And is it white? One of the clovers, and I can't remember, one of the clovers is not recommended for feeding at all. It's either white or red. I think it must be white. It must be white if he's doing red. But all clovers have a compound that causes foaming in the gut. Like you have to watch goats eating it even. You can cause foaming in the gut.
Yeah.
So I don't bother with it in my rabbits. We don't really grow any clover here, so it's not a real big deal for me. So.
Yeah. So Dale asked, in dandelion and clover grow wild in here in East Texas? Is that okay? Dandelion, yes. Clover, probably not.
Yeah. Dandelion is fine. Just remember, dandelion can be kind of high in calcium, so no more than every other day. I fed it every other day. It does fine.
Yeah.
It can also be a diuretic, so you've got to be careful with dandelion a little bit. You don't want to run into any kind of problems, but.
So Christina asked, what dryer do you use and what do you recommend?
So I do a couple of different things. I have an old, what is it, a Nesco? It's the round stackable tray dehydrator. I like to use that for bigger stalk stuff, like some of the heavier kale or mints and that kind of stuff that takes a little bit longer. But generally what I do is I have a big 4-foot by 8-foot dryer, just open air dryer that I built last year that I use. And basically it's a 4x8 frame with screen door screen on it, and then it's got a top lid that is also screened, so it sandwiches the stuff in between. And most things here, I mean, we get so dry in the summer that most things will dry in like a day, but the way I built it is so that I don't have to take a lot of time flipping stuff over, because you run into that in the dehydrator. You typically have to flip everything over to make sure that you're getting everything all the way through. With that thing, I don't have to because it's open air on both sides. So.
And the sun does it. You don't have to do anything other than just put it in there, and you leave it basically for 24 hours almost. You let it go.
Yeah, I've let stuff sit out there for a couple of days if it needs it. Like great big dandelion leaves sometimes have to sit out there for a while. But yeah, I just use a basic air dryer. I used to have one, and I still have one out there that I use for some stuff. It's like, I think I got it for like $25-$30 off of Amazon, and it hangs, and it's like It reminds you a little bit of one of those closet organizers. You know, the ones that like you clip them in there and they have all the little shelves on them.
Yeah.
It's basically the same thing, except it's got a zipper on the front and it's mesh kind of netting, and it's got like 4 or 5 trays in it, and the trays come out and they're washable and all that. I've used that.
Yeah, we did
Depending
that.
on, I mean, I dry a lot of stuff because we have a lot of animals, but so I built the bigger one, but I've used the smaller one just fine. It's probably not worth the time or the energy per se to use an electric dryer. You certainly could if you wanted. I mostly use our electric dryer for my own herbs at this point, um, or veggies for us, just because it's a time thing. I can because it's livestock feed. I'll go through and I'll just pick a bunch of stuff for the rabbits out of the garden, and then just walk over and dump the bucket on the dehydrator, spread it over, and lock it down. If you're doing it in the house, it takes a little bit more time, and you have to stack it on the racks all pretty and nice. And
Yeah.
you know, I'm about speed, efficiency. Just get it, dump it, and move on.
I can't remember. I thought we had made a video on you making one of those, or maybe you made one and then we planned.
I need to build a second one. We did not make a video on the first one because that was the day I just wanted some Nikki time, and so I was out there. You were making fun of me. I had my headset on. I was rocking out to the Bee Gees. I was staying alive as I was building the dehydrator. But I need to build a second one, so I'll try and make a video on that sometime this spring.
So Michael asked, for nursing does, better oats or black oil sunflower seeds?
Depends on what we're going for. If we're trying to build milk production, black oil sunflower seeds. If we're having weight issues, I would probably prefer the oats for building weight. A lot of people feed oats to help with milk production, and I've never found a difference. Black oil sunflower seeds or calf manna is what I use if I'm trying to build milk production. Calf manna to me is the bomb when it comes to milk production, but unless you really need to up milk production like huge, it's not worth the effort. Is that it?
That's pretty much it. I think Ray was chiming in. He said that on his expecting does, he does 2 tablespoons of oats and periodic little bit of dandelion to help their milk and digestion.
Yeah, that's true. Dandelion is good for milking does. We get it to grow in such a short amount of time here. I grow it and I dry it, but I don't even have any now. Like, it's April and I went through and looked. There's no dandelions growing, so it doesn't help me.
Yeah. So DL asking, where do you get your calf manna?
Feed store. Calf manna. We get it at Coastal. We get it at Grange. We get it at most of our feed stores. They have a bunch of different sizes of bags. So it used to be that you could only get like a 25 or a 50 pound, and it's really expensive. It's what, $40 for a 50-pound bag. But our feed store will do 5 and 10-pound bags, so you can get a pretty small little bag. And for the longest time, that's all I would buy is 5 and 10-pound bags, because how often do you need it? Right. I mean, this is back when I had like 5 or 6 does. And then when we were doing our own feed blends, we were buying it by the 50-pound bag because, of course, I used it as a protein source. But yeah, a 5 or 10-pound bag is like, it's expensive. It's probably over $1 a pound, but it's probably $10 or so for a 5-pound bag or 8-pound bag. I'm trying to remember what it is. It might be an 8-pound bag. It's something weird I was gonna say, but yeah, you can get it on Amazon even. Last time I checked, you could buy it on Amazon. I'm sure you could buy it from Valley Vet. There's probably a ton of places.
Any shelf life to it?
Not that I've ever noticed. Like all feeds, they probably tell you 90 days is probably like the most optimum. But I've I've fed stuff that I've had for a year and it still seems to do just fine. So I would think it'd be, I would think it'd be fine.
Yeah.
Just keep it stored good,
Yeah.
dry and all that.
Yeah. I don't know. Christopher said something about he loves staying alive, but then he took his message back, so I didn't get to read it.
What?
I don't know.
Message retracted.
Yeah.
That's too bad. Yeah, I'm a bit of a Bee Gees fan. Go figure that. It's kind of a weird thing, but I'm still a big Wham fan. Nothing. You throw on a little Wham, and I almost want to break out some white pants. Kaden knows if I hear Wham, I'm singing that for days.
Okay. So, can calf manna cause your rabbits to become overweight?
Yes. It's high in protein. And with rabbits, remember that anytime we have too much protein, what doesn't get flushed gets turned to fat. So you want to, that's why we aim for that 16 to 17% window. In really big rabbits, you can go up as high as 18%, like the Americans, Flemish Giants, a lot of that kind of stuff. But yeah, anything that's like calf manna, I want to say is like 25 or 30% protein. So too much protein, that's what happens to it. It turns into fat. So.
Have you ever heard or used a hand crank pellet mill for making rabbit feed?
Somebody asked me about that last year, and I had meant to look into it, and no, I haven't. You've got to remember that I have enough rabbits that I feed about 40 pounds of feed a night. So it's a lot of hand cranking of pellets.
Yeah.
But I've had people ask me about that. I don't know that I feel like it's worth the effort. My rabbits will eat greens whether they're dry or fresh. It's amazingly enough, my rabbits tend to prefer dried greens over fresh. There's always like a curve at the beginning of the year where they're very suspicious about fresh greens. So dry is always better for them anyway. And I just mix it in with hay when we give hay and move on with it and don't worry too much about it. I will have to remember you. Remind me of that later. I'll look into a hand crank because somebody asked me about that last year and I forgot about it.
So how would you make it? Are you gonna do like a big tumbler mix of the perfect mix, and then you what? Put it in water?
Well, no.
Dissolve it?
Well, it depends. Sometimes they use different stuff as binders. So we'll have to look at it and see because different pellet machines do different things. Some of them they just shred it and it's just pressure to kind of pressurize everything together. Some of them use binders, and we'd have to look and see. I would imagine a hand crank is probably using a binder, and I don't know because I've never, like I said, people have asked me about it, and I've never looked. I did decide probably that later this year I'm going to build a hand baler. I don't know if people have ever seen one of these. A lot of people use them for like just a couple acre thing, and they build these hand balers. So you stack everything in, and it compresses and compresses, and then you tie them together. I'm going to build a smaller one and make little bales of rabbit hay with my veggie mix. Sounds like a fun project.
It could be.
But I'm thinking that's what I'm going to do because then I could, it does. Just if you cut everything down to the right size, which most of your veggies will be anyway, it should make little flakes, little mini flakes, just like what you get in a big bale.
Yeah.
You'd get little flakes, and then I could peel off and stick right into the feeder. At least this is how it'll work in my brain. It probably won't work out that way at all. But in my brain, I tell myself that I can just make these little bales that'll have the cute little flakes just like our hay baler does. The key is to put so much in and compress because that's what makes the flakes.
Yes.
So there'd be a learning curve, but just putting some in and smack anyway. It'll be a project for hopefully later this year because I've really been thinking this is the way to go. Because a big bale, you got to pull everything apart and
yeah.
Yeah.
We got it.
He's He's like, great, another freaking project.
No, I'm the enabler, so I'm thinking how engineering wise to do this and manufacture it on a.
I'll show you. I looked at getting one.
Yeah.
Because this is a thing, and I don't know if he knows it's a thing, but anybody who's been to craft stores knows in the fall you get the little straw bales. So what they do apparently is you buy big bales and they run it through these little micro balers, and they're like $3,000 because I thought this was going to be a good idea. I thought, oh, how expensive can it be? I'll get a little micro baler, right? And I'll make these cute little hay bales. And then I looked at it and I was like, for $3,000, no, that's not going to work. But I think I can do the little home compressed bale. We'll try it.
We can do it. So Ray wants to know what you think of alfalfa cubes, and he's interested in seeing if they have orchard or timothy cubes. I think they do.
They do. They do have because I've fed. I think I have timothy cubes in the barn. I don't like alfalfa cubes because I don't like alfalfa. So an occasional cube is probably okay. We give them to Muddy Buddy. I've got some alfalfa cubes out there for one of our old rabbits, and because alfalfa is higher in protein, and we're having some weight issues with him because he's knocking on the door of 7.5, I think now.
Yeah.
So they're fine. They're fine. A lot of rabbit breeders like hay cubes because they're compressed and they're hard, and so it helps with their teeth. I don't feed a lot of them. My problem with hay cubes is to feed hay cubes, they are on the cage floor, and what do we know about feeding on cage floors? We are asking for parasites, right? And we're asking to contaminate the feed. So I'm not a huge fan of hay cubes. The reason I have them, to be honest, is I take them for the show rabbits a lot. That it gives them something to fiddle with, and they'll still eat, and But other than that, I don't like them a whole lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Ray. They'll work for chew blocks too.
Yeah, they work for chew blocks.
So Robin says her husband made her a small baler, but she doesn't know how to tie them yet.
I noticed that on some of the ones that I was looking at, that there's a real. We have so many baling twine from our hay bales that this was the other thought that I had was, well, I can reuse all these bales to just tie these little micro bales, and like I said, I don't know if it's going to work the way I think it's going to work. But that's what I have an engineer for. He's going to have to help me figure this out. I'll show you the plans of a couple different ones, and we'll try and figure. I don't think it'll take me much to build it by any stretch.
No, I don't think so.
Because I'm only trying to make little bales. Go figure. It's always a project around here.
So Cindy showed up.
Hey, Cindy. We're behind. His computer runs like, 10 seconds behind or so?
Yeah, something like that. Let's see. So Elijah said, I assume he means Muddy Buddy. Are you still using him for breeding? I heard, but you do not know if it's true that old bucks can have a heart attack from breeding.
They can. They can have a heart attack. So Muddy Buddy is not breeding. The last time I had him in with a doe, there was a moment where we got our fall off, and he laid there for a really long time, and I was not convinced that this was at all a good idea, so we stopped using him. Much to his previous owner's frustration. She really wants some more babies out of him, and I'm terrified that the next one will be the one that kills him. His brother, though, is about to turn 7. They're about 6 months apart, and I still use him all the time. So it really just depends kind of on the rabbit. You can tell when they're starting to have some issues. My 6-year-old magpie buck, Lane, we are probably getting close to the end of his breeding life for the same reason. He needs longer and longer recoup time between breedings, and that's usually a sign that they're falling off a little bit. As far as can they die of a heart attack while breeding? Yes. I've known of several breeders that had that happen, and we actually had one back in the fall I think that's what happened to Berserker.
Yeah.
I had bred him, and the next day he was not right at all, and we lost him within 24 hours. And I think that's what happened. He was like 6, and I think he suffered a heart attack episode during his breeding. So, what a way to go! So.
Chris just said that's what all guys want to go out that way.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Not okay. Well, that I kind of wonder if that was what led to our Nubian buck passing away. We gave him his harem of 8 ladies this year, and he settled them all, but he died not long after. And
yeah.
You know what that tells you? Women will be the death of men.
Yep.
Keep talking. I'll be right back.
Okay. I don't know. I don't think there's anything else going on around here. Let's see. So we did hip camp. Our people came in Friday, stayed 2 nights. They had a 3rd night booked, but they ended up leaving early to go visit friends for Easter. Let's see. Collect weights and kits from newborn on. So Cindy's asking how to collect weights on kits from newborn on. She ordered a whole litter when they were born. If you already covered this, disregard or watch the replay. We haven't.
We really haven't. So from
newborn on, how do you collect the weights?
Okay. Well, I did mention that I use Kintrax to log my weights in. But that would mean that when you add a litter, or have a litter, you have to add the entire litter in, which is kind of a pain. So I think what I would do is, for tracking purposes, Collie's just rolling into the tripod. I would keep a notebook, litter 1, who the parents are. I don't know that I would bother weighing at birth. But you could, I guess, if you're going to do that, just use a kitchen scale is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
And then usually when I track weights, or back when I used to track all my weights, I would weigh at 2, 4, 6, and 8 weeks. And then whatever, like if they stayed till 12, then at 10 and 12. Unless you're really watching a couple animals for growth. It's really not worth doing more than that. And you'll be surprised at how much weight a rabbit can pick up in a week. I've had like underperforming babies that I've pulled at like 7 weeks, because I don't wean until a sibling is, into a cage. And I've seen rabbits pick up as much as a 1.5 pounds in a week. So they will pick up weight crazy fast. And you can, if you've got a poor performer and you want to see if things are, starting to work, whatever you're doing, or whether you've isolated or whatever, I wouldn't weigh any more than like every 4 or 5 days is where you're probably going to see the biggest improvement, I guess.
How do you keep track of your rabbits before you tattoo them?
That's a really good question. So, and this kind of comes back to the fact that, remember that I am first and foremost a Harlequin breeder, and all of my kits look different. So I tend to, if I'm really watching a litter for something, I just go through and snap pictures of the face, because Harlequin faces are very particular, and kind of monitor from there. There are things you can do. So with the Americans, I know a lot of breeders that use different colored nail polishes on like a spot on the bottom of the foot, or I've heard of people doing it on a spot on the forehead, but moms tend to groom it off faster. Sharpie doesn't really work, but you can use nail polish, tends to be the thing. Just keep an eye. If it's a new doe and she's not used to that kind of stuff, you will occasionally get a doe that overgrooms and will take a foot off, especially on a really young kit. If you're doing it at like 2 weeks and up, it's probably fine. But nail polish tends to be the best way. And it comes in so many freaking colors, right? So if you're watching 8 different rabbits and they're all silver fox, just get 8 or 10 different colors, in purples and reds and pinks, and, stuff that you would probably never wear. But you can do that, or you can do a couple of dots or whatever, but that tends to be the best. And even then you've got to watch it for, redoing it probably every week to 2 weeks, depending on how active they are.
Would you recommend using a nest box to keep rabbits warm in the winter?
I don't. Remember that rabbits do far better in the cold than in the heat. The only time that we've ever worried about that kind of stuff is when we get below zero. And I mean a lot below zero. Like right at zero, I'm not too worried about it. Older pet rabbits like Muddy Buddy, that's what Vanessa's always done with him, is a nest box full of hay for him to lay in. I hear he didn't care.
Yeah.
What tends to happen with nest boxes, there's a couple of things that go on there. Either one, they turn them into litter boxes, which is gross, or two, it creates a really bad precedent for does to be nest box sitters. So if they get used to every time there's a box in that's their box, they either tend to throw babies on the wire or have babies in the box and then lay on them, or they soil the nest box around the kits. So I don't use a nest box for pretty much anything except nesting. I want it clear in their mind what that box is for.
So Elijah wants to know what the fancy seedlings behind us.
Oh, well, I guess I'll just get up and point.
There's a lot behind us.
So I have tomatoes going here. I have basils going here. I love basils. So I have like, what do I got? 2, 4, 6. I got like 12 different basils going. These are hot peppers. You can't see them, but there's some sweet peppers down over there. Up on the top right. Yeah, you can see the top right. These are really super leggy brassicas. So this is all broccoli, cauliflower. I want to say that's all that's in there. And then this one is some other kind of pepper is what it looks like. I, off the top of my head, can't remember what I started in there. And that's about it. Down here, we've just got some wheatgrass fodder. I've got some old chard behind Canaan. I've got more to start, but that's it for right now.
What about using food coloring for identifying rabbits?
I've heard of some people doing it in whites. I don't know. Remember I do Americans, so they tend to be pretty dark. So I go off what the American breeders do, and most of them say they do nail polish, but you probably could. Food color doesn't come in a whole lot of different colors.
No, you're just thinking pink and blue for identifying sexes.
Yeah, you could. I mean, the thing, you'd have to make sure it dried, because probably what would happen is they'd either rub each other or get it back into a nest box, and then you just have these tie-dyed rabbits that were pink and blue. So I don't know that would help a whole lot. But if you made sure that they actually dried, I guess that would probably be okay.
Yeah.
Haven't tried it. One of my rabbit groups was just talking about using food coloring on rabbits the other day. So maybe if it's a light enough color that you can see it, in whites it would be okay. Although I would think that, I'm not sure why you would be overly worried about it if they're still all in a litter type situation. Because like I get with what Cindy's saying is she's wanting to track individual rabbits, so you'd want to mark them individually. Bucks and does, really you're not going to worry about it truly separating them until they're at weaning.
Right.
And then you can just wean them as is. And that's how I do mine, is I pull them out and I go, boy, girl, boy, girl. So I don't know.
That was about it, really. That's
okay.
the last of the questions.
Okay. I saw we built those little huts they can sit on. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You can do all kinds of stuff. Did we have anything else we wanted to talk about with the whole schedules and
No,
we were kind of talking about the whole getting way back. We were talking about scheduling. I would say that one of the number one things that we hear homesteaders say over and over again is, oh, well, this year we're going to do blank. And then you ask them when they're going to do it. Oh, well, we don't have a timeline for that. I guess from experience, I can tell you that if you don't have a timeline, you're never going to get it done. I have a lot of things that every year I say, oh, I'm going to do this. And it just kind of disappears behind the stuff that does have a timeline. So we try to, again, going back to my Google Calendar, which is where I schedule my life, and I also have a notebook and a whole bunch of different stuff, but we make a full list of all the things that we need to do this year, and then I go through and I actually add it onto the calendar of, like right now, this week, I am working on one, picking up all the fencing, but two, we needed to expand the goat yard, and three, I'm taking an old hutch and converting it to new quail pens. So I've been meaning to do it for a while, like like a month or two, and I just put it on the calendar and made it a priority. And if you don't do that, you miss a lot of stuff. Boy, he makes me nervous. He's over here just typing away. I'm like, what's going on? What am I missing? Must not be anything serious.
DL asked about using rabbit tractors, and I said, yeah, we have a video, and you made some mini tractors last year.
That I will probably not use this year. So, the thing I'm going to say about rabbit tractors, and again, if you didn't watch last week's live stream, you may want to go back and watch that, where we talked about RHD. I'm really nervous about having rabbits out anywhere that wild rabbits could be, anywhere that wild birds can get to, or bugs. So, rabbit tractors, I don't use them a lot. I don't use them every day. The ones that we have, the rabbits can never make ground contact. That's kind of, it sits up enough that the grass pokes through and they can eat it. I would be really scared about planning to have my rabbits out in tractors all year. I'm going to put a couple of old ladies, and I feel bad saying this, but I am moving a couple of old does out to the garden in their own tractor deals to run the aisles between the garden beds. And they're basically going to become my Century program. Like, if we get RHD here, in theory, they'll be the first to go. They're my canary in the coal mine, so to speak. I mean, yeah. It's not the best plan, but what I'll be doing is my biosecurity stuff going into the rabbit barns, and then they'll be getting fed last, and we'll just see if they pick it up, then I know I've got it.
Yeah,
it's not the greatest plan, but how else do you know until it's here and killing everything?
Yeah, so, unfortunately.
So
that was it.
Good.
Rough Patch said that they use surgical markers that they bought off Amazon to identify rabbits. That it lasts longer than Sharpies.
Yeah, Sharpies doesn't last very long. I used to, if you're going to use Sharpies, so I'll, being a 4-H leader, I'll tell you this. What we had the kids do when we are trying to identify our pen of 3, usually there's 4 or 5 rabbits that you're kind of watching kind of close. Sharpie in the ear covered with clear nail polish. And it'll last a few weeks, which is better than just Sharpie. I've had times where you write just with Sharpie and inevitably a mother comes through and grooms it off like just that fast, and so it didn't work. But clear nail polish over the top of it will keep it on for weeks usually. What?
Nothing. Ray's message. It's nothing bad, but it shows up as, do you want to allow this? It could be.
Oh, Ray used the word sex. Shame on you.
He used it twice.
Oh, that you got flagged by the YouTube gods
YouTube
for
fact
that.
Checkers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna show that so everybody can see it. He's just saying he just takes his weights and sorts them out and then tattoos it twice.
That's pretty much what I do too. I don't always tattoo at 12 weeks. It kind of depends on what I've got going on. Like if I've got a group of Americans that, again, I've been doing this long enough. At 8 and 9 weeks, I know if they're junk or if they're going to be okay. Junk goes to the coal barn, coal pens, the nice ones sometimes I just go ahead and tattoo them. Americans, God, by 14 weeks, it's so hard to get a good needle penetration that, I'll go ahead and tattoo them early and just get it over with. The Harlequins, I will admit that unless something sells or I'm keeping it, I get to it when I get to it.
Yeah.
I went to that show in Merced the other day or last week or whatever, and I tattooed a whole bunch of like 6 months old and year old rabbits because we didn't show them last year.
Yeah, there's no need to.
And the Harlequins will take it. The ear is still flexible enough, but God help you if you try and get an American over 6 months. It's horrible to try and get the ink into the ear.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
That was it?
I'm watching and making sure we don't miss anything.
No, I'm not missing anything.
Well, that's about all I had. I don't know what time it is.
It's 6:50.
Oh, well, we're pretty much done then. Yeah. Unless anybody's got any pressing things. That's about all I had to talk about was just record keeping type stuff. I know somebody had asked me about what kind of records I keep on the goats, because again, I have Kindrax for them too. And we don't really keep much of anything for the goats other than when did I trim feet, when did I breed them, when did we worm them, and then when we vaccinate. I don't weigh the goats. That's on my long-term wish list. So if anybody loves me so much they want to contribute about $500, I want really bad a nice livestock scale. And I've been talking about it for a while, and he was on board with it, and then life has kind of gone a different direction where I'm not sure I want to spend the money. The decent ones, I'm not so full of myself. I'd take a $300 one if somebody wanted to buy me one. But one day I'll take weights on the goats, but mostly I just weigh the rabbits, and not every time either. I try and get all of my adult breeders a good weight at least once a year, so.
Everybody's just starting to
wind it down. Yeah, we need to go get chores done and stuff.
Yeah, chores done and get dinner in the oven. So.
Yeah, I made chicken enchiladas. Well, chicken and rabbit enchiladas actually.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. All right. Well, that I guess is it for us for this week. Right now, I'll just put the bug in the ear of the few people that are still on. Right now, I may not have a live stream next week. We have been super, super busy, and I have a whole bunch of stuff that desperately needs my attention in the rabbit world. So I may have to do some other stuff next Monday. So, not sure one way or another. I'll probably put it on the community tab one way or another, like Sunday, but probably no live stream next week, just because I do have some other stuff that really needs to be done. So
just real quick, Trevor's asking, a doe with a week-old litter, can she foster newborn kits?
I wouldn't. For the first 2 or 3 days, your doe will be producing colostrum for her litter. So if you're trying to foster them over, then that doe is no longer doing that. So they're missing out on some vital nutrients. There's also a size difference. What tends to happen, kits grow pretty quick and newborns tend to kind of fall to the bottom. If you have no other option, what you can do is shelve, it's called shelving, both litters, and put the doe in one box, like in the morning, and let her feed, and then take her out, and in the evening take her to the other litter to feed. But you will have to take both litters out and manually put them in and make sure she's feeding them if you have to. If you absolutely need something to nurse those babies, otherwise probably not the best idea. Shelving can get kind of nasty and hard to deal with and confusing for the doe.
That's about it. I mean, Chris is asking what's the best meat and pelt rabbit, and I just told him to just watch the videos. We have top 5s on both on what we.
Yeah, we have a video on pelt rabbits, and we have a video on our pick for the overall homesteading rabbit. and then we have one for the top meat breed. So, not trying to push you into watching more videos, but we cover it pretty in depth there with really pretty good synopsises of why each breed is we've talked about. But yeah, it's on the playlist. It's on the playlist.
Yep, I think that's about it.
I see somebody say, "I love the silver fox." Those fox people are hardcore. I'll give them that.
And we had one. We had the one guy. Wasn't he or was he a lilac?
He was a lilac. We've never had a silver fox
okay.
here. My girlfriend in town, Deanna, has silver fox.
Oh yeah, no, that's right. Yeah. Deanna has it now. Okay.
But
that's
okie dokie.
Yep.
Well, that's it for us. We're gonna go get dinner started and go do chores.
Yep.
I got hungry bunnies.
That's right.
So.
Yep. So if you guys have any questions that we didn't cover here or anything else, email us, leave them in the comments. You know, we're only in like 17,000 places on the internet you could find us. So that's about it.
Soon, Ray. Soon. I've got to tattoo some rabbits now that I'm thinking about it. I got 2 to do soon. So.
Yeah. So we'll do that. I'll help her and film it and hold and all that, and we'll talk about the bunny burrito and.
Yeah, I've got to have help to tattoo and video, and he's been so busy working that.
Yeah.
Because I've got to finish up the malocclusion video, and it's the same thing. I need someone to hold the camera, and I can't.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
So soon. Between now and the time you come to class. I realize that's like 6 weeks, but I'll get it done. I'll get it done soon.
And we can also show it in class too. We can we'll probably have a cull or something we could tattoo.
Oh yeah, there's always something around here.
Yeah, we could do that too. I mean,
I've got some seniors that haven't been tattooed yet.
We'll do the video, but we can also show a live demonstration in class.
Or after class, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, or after class or whatever.
Yeah, because my cousin's coming back again too, so she needs to know how to tattoo.
Yep. Oh, that's a good one. We'll have to talk about that, Cindy. Keeping rats out of your bunny barn. Yeah.
Yeah, rats are a nightmare.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll talk about that next time.
Yeah, we'll talk about maybe just predator and rodents kind of deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right, everybody. See you next time.